Okay, yes, thank you. Today we are doing outrageous flowering plants as our tour. I'm Evan Villani, a young horticulturist here at the garden with Tim. So I work in the garden and I'm all around, jumping around. As you guys have seen, if you've been through the garden at all, there's a lot happening. We had a lull through this cold winter, and then we had a couple 80-degree days, and everything was just hit the ground running and leafing out and blooming. And so it's really lovely here, and I'm gonna walk you through and show you some highlights. The qualifications for today's plants were like flowers that will knock your socks off. So I hope you all brought backup socks, and we're gonna get started. We're not going far, we're just going right here. This plant that we are under and next to is Bignonia capreolata Jekyll. Jekyll is the cultivar, and this selection was made by Michael Durr. If you know the name, he specializes in the breeding and study of woody plants, and he and his wife Bonnie were bicycling on Jekyll Island in Georgia when they stumbled across this, and he made his wife pull the bikes over, and he took some cuttings and he brought them back and propagated them. He found that this was just an exceptionally pleasant, bright, happy variety. Those trumpet-shaped, those tube-shaped flowers are nice and colorful and have those hues of orange and yellow. And it has actually turned out to be quite a good plant in cultivation. It has some of the coldest and warmest hardiness of any Bignonia capreolata. So this is a zone 6 through 9 plant. It is very tough for us. It obviously needs very little. It's planted in a relatively small space, and it climbs onto the roof through adhesive suckers. So you would want to plant this on any sort of textured surface, like a wooden fence, a wooden structure, and it's going to climb just fine. It needs a little bit of training to get it started, and then once you get this kind of trunk established, it'll keep throwing up little shoots that go all the way through it, and it'll keep expanding, and it needs a little bit of care year to year, but overall this is a very low maintenance and a very happy plant. So I encourage you to cover your structures with it, fences, any piece of wood or textured surface that you might like. Any questions about Bignonia capreolata Jekyll? Do the hummingbirds like it? Thank you. Yes, this is actually a native species, and this is a very important early source of hummingbird food. This is one of those first flowers that opens and is very good for hummingbirds. Yes, Georgia native. Any other questions? How long do the blooms last? So this will bloom for about a month here in the spring, and then at the end of the summer, it'll bloom again. You don't have to cut it back to get it to rebloom. That is correct. It is evergreen here for us. It prefers full sun, and it cannot tolerate standing water. So you can't put it in a constantly moist spot. It needs some drainage. After it's established, it is very drought tolerant. And again, I think it's just a spectacular and tough plant. You can plant on tree trunks as well. That's where you see it growing often, is on those big, thick pine with that bark, and it grows all the way up those naked trunks, and it's spectacular. I'm a big fan. And we will move on. So I think this will work with such a big group, is to just pass around small cuttings. Now, these are roses, so be careful. So this is a rose. This is Rosa Sprothrive being the trade name. And on your sheets, if you have them, Sprothrive is the cultivar name. And this is going to get a little complicated, but not really, about naming. So why they gave them these strange cultivar names nowadays is because of our patent laws. After 20 years, the patents run out, and so that name is no longer protected. So people can sell it as Sprothrive. Anybody can sell that without having to pay a royalty to the breeders after 20 years. However, if you name the cultivar name something weird, Sprothrive, it's not very attractive to the seller or to a buyer. And then you trademark the name Thrive, the company owns that trademark forever. Or I don't know if it runs out, but I think it's forever.
You have to renew it.
You have to renew it, but it is renewable. Patents are not renewable. After 20 years, it's fair game to anybody. So they will continue selling this under Thrive, and anybody who wants to call it Thrive and sell it that as some easy name will have to pay the company a fee. So the parents of this, what do I like about this rose? Let's start with that. It has glossy dark green foliage. It has beautiful red semi-double flowers. It is a great shrub, low maintenance, and this is its max size. We barely touched this plant. Tim planted this when it came out in 2011, and it has done just fine in part shade. It's a wonderful shrub. We like roses that don't take much effort. We're lazy gardeners. It's hardy to zone 5, and it was specifically bred for resistance to black spot. And it has reblooming because one of its parents is a descendant of knockout rose, but it's not so related to knockout rose that it's susceptible to other things that knockout rose are. So this is the funny part that I was mentioning. The parents are Maimon Blaine, Scrivlove, and Wekisis Baco, otherwise known as Marmalade Skies, Baby Love, and Home Run. And so Marmalade Skies is a Rosa floribunda, and this is getting complicated again, and Rosa floribunda is a name of a group of hybrid roses that are hybrids between tea roses, which are Old English roses, and polyantha, which is another hybrid rose. And basically what I'm trying to say is that roses have been bred for hundreds of years, and the genetics are all very complicated, and so you don't get any normal rose species names anymore in these cultivated varieties. But there are some native roses that we're trying to get back into our roses here and see what kind of interesting things we can get them to do. But it's interesting how much you can breed a single plant like this and still get new varieties and new cultivars. So the parents are orange, miniature yellow, and a single red flower, and all their parents are about 3 feet tall. And so this is kind of what the offspring looks like. And that is Rosa Thrive, a great hardy rose. Any questions? Okay, we're going to move this away. Okay, so I didn't think about getting everyone into this space. You can walk in the bed a little bit if you'd like. It's clear right now what is and isn't there because we recently redid that. So please, you can come closer. But hopefully from wherever you are, you can see this wonderful white clump of Erigeron pulchellus. And the selection here is Lynnhaven Carpet. And as you pass around, you'll see that it's a very fuzzy leaf, and it's a wonderful white flower. And the structure of this flower is interesting. These are in the aster family. And what you're actually looking at is a bunch of really tiny flowers called strap or ray flowers on the outside that give it the full show. And then on the inside, what you would call disc flowers. Thank you, Ashley. And for this species, both of these are, they will reproduce. They're not sterile, but they open up in sequence. And the idea of them not all opening up at once is so that they try to outcross. And then at the very end, if it didn't outcross, it will still self-seed. And so even though an individual here in this clump might not live more than 2 or 3 years, it spreads, it seeds, and it spreads by stolons. And so it forms a very nice clump over time. Even when the flowers aren't here, it's that nice kind of blue-gray, and it's a lovely plant. It just needs part sun. Full sun is a little harsh, and something well draining. So it won't. It is another plant that won't sit in moisture, and I believe this is native to much of the U.S. Many parts of the U.S., central and east. Native to the rocky woodlands. Great for many songbirds and pollinators. And a long season of bloom. Any questions about Erigeron pulchellus Lynnhaven Carpet? Okay. So these two are selections of Rhododendron austrinum. Here on my left is Hotspur Yellow, and here on my right is Lisa's Gold. Hopefully I didn't mix those up. Let me just double check. Yes. Yes, okay, great. Awesome, not wrong this time. And they're both great plants. As you can see, this one is starting to finish, so it's losing some of its luster. A lot of the old flowers are drooping down. However, Lisa's Gold is just coming in to finish the job, so it's still, there's a lot of interest here. And if you come later and smell these, they smell amazing. Hopefully you can smell it a little bit from where you are. But deciduous azaleas are really, really a punch. They're amazing. The color on these is fantastic, the amount of blooms, and they're tough plants. They like the woodland. They just need some organic matter in the soil and some decent drainage and some part shade. And they have kind of a funky architecture. They're not like something that you would shear into a ball or make perfect. They tend to be irregularly shaped because in the wild, they're used to stretching for the light and taking on whatever canopy they can fit into that light. And then everywhere the light touches, you're gonna get these awesome, awesome clumps of blooms. So all I have to say, you need to plant some deciduous azaleas in your yard. Please and thank you. These are native to the southeast US. They have some fall color, and even though they might be relatively bland for the rest of the year, this is well worth it. Because you can't ask for anything more out of an outrageous flowering plant. They are attractive to hummingbirds and bees, and I was actually able to find nothing about these cultivars, like anything specific on them. I think they were bred for more heat tolerance, or they were just selected for great color. But rhododendrons are pretty confusing. I know my our friend Pat McCracken at Garden Treasures got like 150 bred cultivars of rhododendron from a long-term hobby breeder who ran a nursery, and like half of them were wrong. So half of them were just incorrect. So we try our best here, but these are definitely rhododendron austrinum. Another deciduous azalea is rhododendron canescens with a more pink flower. And yeah, just a lovely, lovely plant. Any questions? Is it related to the honeysuckle azalea? Well, it's an azalea, so yes. I don't know if it's the same species. I'm not familiar with that common name, unfortunately. Any other questions? Okay, well, I unfortunately will have to leave this wonderful smelling place as we move to the next plant. Okay. I'm standing under the tree Styphnolobium Athene, and it's not as spectacular as the rest of our things today, but we are an arboretum, so I have my quota of trees to hit. This is a member of the pea family, as you can tell from these leaves, and then you'll recognize that these are pea flowers. Papillonaceous is the word, asymmetrical on top and bottom. And this tree is also a native to Texas, and it likes the dry environment here. It needs almost no water, and it loves heat. So that's why it does so well here. I think it's a really nice statement, even in the winter. It has great architecture, and it's just a nice addition to this garden. It is, I believe, slightly weedy, as in it will seed around some, so we have to pull out some weed seedlings. But overall, a very tough plant. This is the first time I've noticed it flowering, so I decided to talk about it today. And then this is a more tree form. Sometimes you'll see them growing in a more spindly way, more wild looking way, but I'm preferential to it going, especially in this spot. It's in the center of a bed. I think it should go straight up and form a nice usual canopy. That is Styphnolobium Athene. Oh, and then Eve's necklace is the common name, or black lace necklace, because these, after they fruit, you can see some of the old ones from last year will form beads almost of black seed pods that will persist all the way through the winter for some more interest. Any questions? Okay, we'll go up to the roof, and then I'll point out there's a mounded shrub over there with speckled white flowers. That's a bonus plant. That's Sarissa japonica. It's awesome. It just leafed out, and it will put out some flowers all the way through the summer until it goes dormant again next winter. And it's just great for pollinators and bees. And that is Sarissa japonica, but there's not enough time to do everything. So there's a lot of things to do on this roof, so we'll move through them, and then you can follow behind and inspect plants however you want, because there's a lot in bloom up here right now, and it's just, everything looks really lovely. So we are in front of this bed here filled with a lot of Chrysactina mexicana. Mexicana meaning it came from around Mexico and Texas. This is actually, none of this was planted. We passed one that was down on the ground, and it has seeded around and filled up this bed, so it's very happy. The foliage on it smells wonderful. It's a little citrusy. It smells different to everybody, so I won't try to describe it. I'm not good at that. But these small yellow flowers are about to all come into bloom, so you'll have to come back and see when it's in its full glory. But it loves the hot and dry. It is tolerant of the cold. It's perfect for our roof because we have all the extremes here of the cold and the heat and the dry. And then, yeah, it's wonderful. It's happy looking, and it will rebloom in the fall as well. And yeah, I have to pull many of these out because they will make babies around here. But it's a very happy plant, and I'm glad we have it. Any questions about Chrysactina mexicana? Okay, then we'll move on to one. We'll have to filter through this spot here. There's a cacti, but it can't be missed. Here I am. Okay. Again, there's a couple things here, but we'll start with this cacti. Cactus. Cacti is plural. This cactus is Echinocereus triglochidatus. I probably butchered that, but this is the king cup cacti, and it is just stunning how it's in flower right now. I didn't know that we could grow cacti here until I came here to this arboretum, and I saw some of the things on this roof, and I was thinking, wow, this is a stunning color, and it's just a really nice thing to have. So obviously this likes the heat and the drought, but it can withstand the cold. What kills it usually is moisture. So it needs a deep, well-draining media because these type of plants are used to relying on their own self as water sources. They take in a lot of water and they store it. They're very slow. Most cacti are slow growers, and that's why we have tiny ones sprinkled here through the garden. They're slow growers because they don't want to respire quickly. They don't take big risks. It's not worth it in the desert. You only do things when you have your water, and then you keep it and you hold it tight until you're ready for that next rain. But we get a lot of rain here, so we have to have the well-draining media so that the root system stays dry, because it's susceptible to things like root rot and other things that would attack the roots because it's not used to having wet roots. That being said, I'm no good at cacti identification when they're not in flower. There's complicated things. You can count the number of spines and see how they're held and the shape of them. But a lot of them are just like little aggressive blobs, and they confuse me. So I'm not really the guy to give a talk on cacti, but it is a native to the Southeast US. And I will also point out behind Blake, that's its cousin. That is Echinocereus viridiflorus, meaning the green-flowered Echinocereus, and that's also a very pleasant look, and we'll go over there later. But the other thing that we want to talk about right here is this lavender, which is Lavandula stoicus, the Spanish lavender, and this is Javelin Deep Purple is the cultivar. And what I want to mention specifically is that Lavandula stoicus is our best bet to grow lavender here in North Carolina. Lavender tends to be a Mediterranean species, so they don't like having winter moisture or summer moisture. And we have both winter moisture and summer moisture. So we need, again, it prefers that well-draining media for sure, and it can be planted on slopes, but in general, I have these in my garden or my parents' garden, and they're a lot more tolerant of the conditions we have here. It forms a nice purple barrel. It flowers for a long time. It's just as good to use as an herb. So it's a great plant, and there's breeding potential as well. This is all it does. It has a low mounding habit, and it's a woody plant, so you don't want to cut it all the way to the ground. It won't resprout. But after it's done blooming, you can shear it just a little bit so that it blooms heavier next time, and it puts on the full show. But I mean, I think you get a pretty good show. I didn't know this, but lavandula, the lava, comes from the Greek to wash, because they would use lavender in their famous bathhouses there and in Rome. It was, to smell nice. I should try that. Any questions? Okay, we're gonna move on. I'll point out the green flowered form of this cacti, and we will continue. So there's a lot in bloom right here, and it was hard to pick. I'm a big fan of this Phlox nivalis near white because of how dense it is, and so it's a really nice visual impact. But I've talked about Phlox enough in the recent days that I was thinking, let's move on. And so I settled here on this nice yellow flower here. It almost looks orange to me. I don't know if I have bad eyes or what, but this is Tetraneurus travis, and there's a new genus name for it, but you can still search it up as Tetraneurus scoposa. Oh, Heminoxus is the new genus name. So great for a rock garden. This is another native. It came from Texas, and this is a form that is a lot more tolerant, again, of our moisture here. Tetraneurus usually will peter out after a year for us here, but Travis is a selection that keeps coming back year to year. It keeps persisting. It's another one with that nice happy color. It blooms April all the way through the summer. And again, it needs that kind of gravelly, well-drained soil. It's hardy, zones 5 through 8. It's called the four-nerve daisy, and it's in the sneezeweed tribe of daisies. And it's one that's actually not a weed, so that's nice. I don't know, a lot of things are called weeds in their common names, and a couple of them are nice plants, and then 90% of the rest of the families, you don't want to grow that because it is indeed a weed. Yes, so this came from the Texas plantman Pat McNeil, and this was seed propagated from Travis County, Texas, and brought to us in 2015 through Juniper Level Gardens. Any questions about Tetraneurus scoposa travis? Okay, we'll move on. So this, which refers to this tag, Iberis simplex, even though it's all throughout here, it moves around. So Iberis simplex is basically an annual for us here, but it seeds around and it forms nice clumps, and it's just super happy. I noticed it also at Juniper Level Botanic Gardens, just seeding into really small cracks of their rock garden and forming these nice clumps. I'm a big fan of that flower shape. The common name is called candy tuft, and it's named that not after candy or anything, but because it came from on the island of Crete. There was a trade empire called Candia, and they would sell these flowers, and they were associated with these flowers. But there's hues of blues and purples and whites, and so I think it would be nice to get in another selection of maybe a really bluish one and see how they all seed around, because you can see here there's all the way from pure white to a pretty decent purple, just because of the fact that they're seeding around and all their genetics are different. And it's an alpine species from Eastern Europe and West Asia with elevations up to 3,000 meters. So this is another rock garden plant. It likes that well-drained soil. It doesn't mind the cold or anything. It will behave as an annual, so you have to let it reseed, but I'm super pleased with it, and it's just a very nice filler. Okay, we've got a little bit of a walk here. So, on my left and right here are Linum lewisii, more commonly known as blue flax. So I think this is a stunning plant. I think that when you look at the flower close up, it kind of plays tricks on your eyes. It's got some sort of hues to it, and blue is actually a pretty rare color in nature. We don't see a lot of blues, and I found a couple theories as to why that might be. One of them is that to be seen as blue, it has to reflect blue, which means it has to absorb red, and red are the lowest energy wavelengths. They're the longest wavelengths, and so it doesn't really make sense for things to absorb things with low energy or focus on doing that. Except the benefit is, since there's not many things that are blue, they stand out more maybe to pollinators who see in a different way from us. And so these are flax, and flax is a great plant that has been used for many, many generations. The Native Americans used these. They used their fibers to weave things. They cook their seeds because they have a nutty flavor, but you have to cook the seeds. You can't eat them raw because, like apple seeds, they contain cyanide. And the whole plant is just, it does work. It's a prairie plant. It contributes well to the soil. It has a deep taproot, and it forms a good root system. And then it's food for birds and pollinators. And then it looks stunning in a garden too. So I'm just really impressed with this plant. And when I was looking into this, I realized my first experience with flax was actually in a video game. I don't know if you guys have heard of Skyrim, but you walk around the world and sometimes you make potions and you collect, like you have to collect flax. And I just thought that was interesting that my first experience with a very common plant was through a video game. But I don't know if that is telling of anything. But these need full sun and berry or sandy soil. So they don't tolerate being wet. And it even prefers a slightly basic soil to take on that full blue hue. Yeah, that is prairie flax, Lynnhaven lewisii. Any questions? Then we will move on. Here we are with Rhododendron Dandyman Color Wheel. This is a recent Proven Winners introduction, and it was bred here in North Carolina in the mountain region by our folks at Mills River through NC State, Tom Rainey and his ornamental breeding program. It is very pleasant because it can take full sun and full heat, and most of these kind of broad-leaved rhododendrons will die in those conditions. So these are plants that are being developed for new homeowners, people who have nothing in their yard. You know, they want a rhododendron, but they have no tree cover because the people who built their house planted 4 ilex and left. So if you want a rhododendron that can take some heavy clay soil, it needs a little bit of amendment, but it was bred to handle heavy clay, handle full sun, be small. The one that's 7 years old that they propagated this from when it was released only got 4 feet tall after 7 years. So it's a slow grower. It's completely covered in blooms. And it's called Color Wheel because as the flowers open, the buds are red and then they open pink and fade to white. So it's a nice kind of ombre over time of colors. I don't know, I didn't write it down, so don't quote me on it, but I think it has reflowering. So I'm standing next to Lynnhaven sempervirens, Leo. So Lynnhaven being the honeysuckle, sempervirens meaning evergreen, and it is somewhat evergreen. And Leo is just a nice red form that blooms for longer. So these blooms, I think, came out 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and some of them have gone down, but you've seen even past this that they've pushed new blooms past the old blooms. So it's a really nice long bloom period. And again, this is a native plant that is of high value to hummingbirds especially. So if you're gonna plant a honeysuckle for hummingbirds, this is the one. Lynnhaven sempervirens is a lot better behaved than some of its weedy cousins from like Japan. Lynnhaven japonica and Lynnhaven mackii are ones you'll find in woodland areas, and they're just like wiry stems that creep along the ground and then choke out small plants. This is a lot better behaved. I don't know, it doesn't particularly smell. Some honeysuckles smell, hence the name. This one doesn't, but it is still great for hummingbirds. And this is a vine that grows by twining. So earlier in the day I mentioned Bignonia, and it has sticky little adhesive pads. So all of that needs is a textured surface to grow. However, with a twining vine, you want to give it some sort of enclosed structure. I'm going to struggle to find the right words to say this, but you want to create a structure that it can just curve along and in between and make its own structure with the vines in there, because it doesn't have sticky pads. It just grows and twines and kind of hangs on, and then it keeps growing from there. And so this will continue to take over these arbors. It is nice and vigorous, and like many plants in the Arboretum, it's tough. We don't do a lot to our plants here. We don't baby them. So great plants. Any questions about Lynnhaven sempervirens, Leo? So this, yes, these little purple hearts here are a clematis that's also on this and is about to open up. So what's nice is as these finish out, our clematis, which we also have going up the same structure, will continue. So it's nice. You don't need to just put one vine per structure. If you have a structure, throw 3 or 4 things on it and see. It keeps things interesting. Usually one thing won't just dominate. And then over there, across from us, we just have that one awesome rose. So that's kind of an exception because it gives us a nice bloom here in a couple weeks. But yeah. Okay. So now I'm underneath the canopy of Cainanthus retusus. This is the Chinese fringe tree, and it's just a fabulous tree. I think I talked about it last year, and I'm gonna talk about it again. And people take their prom pics in front of it, and it's just great. It's a huge wall of white flowers. Cainanthus means snow flower. And I think this is a male because the males tend to be a little showier, but don't let that stop you from buying a female because they're also pretty and they might support a little more wildlife with their fruits. This is a relative of our native, the Cainanthus virginicus, but unlike the virginicus, this is a more consistent plant, a tougher plant, and it's made up its mind. So this is a tree, and it's clearly a tree, but Cainanthus virginicus is sometimes, it's like, it doesn't know, do I want to be a tree? Do I want to be a shrub? Do I grow from the base or grow from the top? But this is clearly a tree, forms a wonderful canopy, and then once it gets to this height and you can limb it up, there's this whole world underneath, and it has wonderful bark, corky bark, and kind of scraggly branching structure. And I also learned that Cainanthus is a relatively large genus. There's 140 species of plants, and only 3 of them are temperate. There's Virginicus, retusus, and one other one which escapes me. And the rest are tropical evergreen plants, one of which we're trying just yesterday. I planted in our xeric garden, Cainanthus pygmaeus, which is only supposed to get up to 5 feet tall. So we'll see if that lasts here or if it completely dies. But a great plant, and I'll struggle to find new things to say year to year, but I will keep talking about it because who wouldn't want to plant this? This is so tough. It's such a tough tree. You just plant this in your yard, you wait like 5 years, and then all of your neighbors are like, wow, they're a good gardener. Man, they're great. So yeah, Cainanthus retusus. How long do the blooms last? About a month, and they start fading into like an off-white yellow, and they're not as pretty. The age of this tree, I don't, sorry, but my guess is about 35 years old. Who asked? You asked, yeah. And this is full size. It's not gonna get much bigger than this. It likes full sun. Yeah, the backside is not, it's not gonna fill in as well, and it's not gonna flower as well. Janice.
They're blooming much earlier now than they used to.
Yep, it is warm. Yep, the bloom season has probably moved forward a whole month. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm standing in a patch of Lunaria annua, variegata. Annua meaning annual, although it's technically a biennial. This plant's life cycle is, I just looked at that and it's really pretty. Wow. That's a nice orange new growth. Okay, this is a biennial, so it means in the first year, some will just stay as foliage and they will not flower, and in the second year, they will flower, set seed, and die. And you can't tell that there are others in this patch which are just foliage because they're obviously outgrown by these awesome purple flowers here. And the cultivar name variegata means variegated, so it's a little extra flavor, a little extra interest here. It's not just purple on green, it's purple on green and white. So it's a nice corner plant here. It fills in really well. The fun thing about this plant is also the common names. I heard it first as money plant or silver dollar, again referring to the seed capsule, which is a silver coin shape with 4 seeds in it. And it's also been called honesty plant because you can see through the seed packet to the seeds inside. You can see through the capsule, and so it's called the honesty plant. It's like I'm not gonna hide anything from you. It prefers moisture and part shade, and it easily naturalizes here, but it's not too aggressive. They're easy to pull out if you don't like them. Any questions about Lunaria annua? Then we'll move on to our last plant. Our final plant is of course a tree, because we are an arboretum, and this is Cornus florida subspecies urbaniana. So we're used to seeing the Cornus florida, our dogwood from the southeast. This is subspecies urbaniana, found in Mexico. And what's really cool about it, and what you've noticed probably, is that the bracts are fused. And so it makes such an interesting flower shape. I've never seen anything like it. It's a little bit alien. It's pretty wild, and it's cool to see these grow, because I thought this was in full bloom a week and a half ago. In fact, it was starting to bloom when we filmed the Day of Giving stuff. So that was March, middle of March. And so it still continued, and they just keep getting bigger. The flowers keep getting bigger and whiter as they mature, and those bracts stay fused at the top. And it's just wild to think about how it does that and why it does that. And I don't know the answers to those questions, so I'm sorry. But it does look really cool, I can tell you that much. It's a dogwood, so it's great for any of the reasons every other dogwood is. And it's just a really fabulous, really cool plant. It's hardy to zone 6, and it is an understory tree, so it appreciates a bit of shade, but obviously this one gets a decent amount of sun and is fine. I wouldn't give it full southern exposure, but it's obviously a pretty tough plant. Any questions about our final plant, or any questions before we end this? Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the weather and enjoyed the plants, and that I've given you guys some ideas about what to plant in your own garden. If you stumble across any of these plants in the store, please nab them up before somebody else does and kills them. You're gonna grow it, and it's gonna live, and it's gonna look beautiful in your yard. So thank you, and happy planting.